Can we bring Richard Tice? Richard, I want your reaction to that, because that's quite a scathing criticism. Your opinion is no better than a bloke in the pub.
Of course, Richard's entitled to his view, but the reality is America's not a member of the ECHR, nor is Canada, nor is Australia. They practice human rights. We invented human rights. We don't need some overseas foreign political judges telling us what to do. I've read the treaties, Richard. I know the exact clauses under which proper leadership would pick these people up safely out of the boats, take them back to France, and this would stop the business model within a couple of weeks. Your lot, you just haven't got the guts and the spine to do it.
Richard, respond.
It's fantastic. He loves a bit of rhetoric. He can rant with the best of them, put himself up as a candidate to oppose me in Gloucester, and let's see what happens.
But he's got a constituency in Hartlepool, and I think he's rather confident up there.
But also, Richard, I find that really interesting because
he hasn't got a constituency at all. He's a candidate.
But Richard, Richard Graham, you heard Richard Tice talk about the law, and you came back with a personal attack. Well, talk about the law. Why is he wrong in terms of the clauses in that legislation?
Listen, we've got all sorts of commitments in domestic law, in the ECHR law, and remember the ECHR was something that we created, Churchill created it, and in international law as well. We are at the moment using missiles against the Houthis in North Yemen, who have launched drone and missile attacks on international shipping trying to go through the Gulf of Aden. And our argument is that it is our responsibility with allies to make sure that the freedom of the seas, that international law, is absolutely maintained. You cannot, at the one hand, invoke international law when it suits you and totally disregard it when it doesn't suit you.
I'm sorry.
And by the way, this is something for Richard Tice to consider. Imagine a woman seriously ill with a difficult pregnancy being put on a flight to Rwanda and dying halfway on that journey. Imagine what the impact on the British public of that would be.
Hey, listen, I'm not in favour of the Rwanda policy, but your responsibility as a government is to protect and defend British citizen first and foremost, and you are failing in that responsibility. You bang on about international law, and it's ridiculous when you're not defending British citizens.
I think that's an extraordinary sort of insult. Tell me which British citizen in Gloucester I have never defended, protected and stood up for.
But what we're hearing, Richard Graham...
I've got to come back. I'm sorry. Richard, people are coming across on those boats. Some of them are committing crimes. They are committing violent acts, rape, torture, drug dealing and, tragically, murder. That's about defending British citizens and protecting us, and you are failing.
And some of those who are coming over are people who've come from utterly dire situations in Syria and Afghanistan. Some of them were even working with Britain and our allies in Afghanistan. And therefore there has to be a sensible process for deciding who can stay and who has to go back.
So they're more important than British citizens, are they?
No, don't be absurd. Obviously, the Rwanda option gives us a way of processing asylum claims in a third country, which several other countries in Europe are looking at. It's a policy that will almost certainly go forward, and you should accept that most people in this country actually want to see the whole asylum process include the Rwanda option, and that's what we will pass this evening.
Mr. Graham, just very briefly, you talk about international treaties, but every single one of those asylum seekers, or economic refugees, as I would call them, many of them, who are crossing the Channel, they're breaking the law when they set foot on British soil. They're breaking the law. The point Richard Tice is making, turn them back because they're breaking the law.
Listen, who is going to put a small boat, which is almost certainly going to be in danger in the weather for about half the year, back onto the sea with the possibility of those people dying in it? It's not what the Royal Navy is going to do under any government.
And it's not what I'm suggesting, Richard. It's listen to what I'm saying. You pick up out of the boats, you put them in the border force cutters, and you take them back to Dunkirk and Calais.
I'm honestly not really here to be ranted at by another politician who's hoping to get elected.
Well, we appreciate your time, Richard Graham, this morning. You are an extremely popular local constituent MP, and I think you do a brilliant job in your area of Gloucester. But I like to see the debate, and that, frankly, is the kind of debate that we have not seen enough of.
And we should just clarify, Richard Tice, how you would do it. So
at the moment, physically, what happens is people are safely taken out of the dinghies onto the border force cutters.
That's right.
I've been out there in the middle of Channel. Yeah. I've seen it happen. Yeah. They are then taken to Dover.
And the border force cutter takes them back.
Take them to Dover. What they should do is take them to Dunkirk and Calais, which they're entitled to do under international law. Yeah. That's the key difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I find most distressing about that conversation, actually, is when we're talking about what to do here, nationally, domestically, and Richard Graham's response is to talk about the Red Sea and to talk about the Houthis and to talk about... And I know that's important. We've got to keep the trade going. We've seen the inflation go up this morning. But it's that kind of detachment from those in power at the moment and the people who live in this country. I've never seen such a big gap between what's important to people.
We've got to talk about something else. Richard, it's been always interesting to talk to you. Richard Tice. Never a dull moment with Richard Tice, is there?